Welcome to the Almost Awakened podcast. I am one of your hosts, Teresa Hobbs, and this is Bill Real, someone you all know and love. And today we're going to be covering part 2 of From Obedience to Integrity. Last episode we covered part 1, which we talked about how obedience was used to manipulate and control, and how it was used to disconnect people from their own sense of self, identity, and ability to sense for themselves what is true. So today we are going to be talking about how to move through that liminal space. We talked about that last week, that kind of space of the void when we step away from a high demand fundamentalist religion or a high control system, and we start to try to find our own center and our own sense of self connection and self direction. So this is going to be the topic today, and we're going to just go ahead and get started. Before we do, is there anything you'd like to add to this, Bill?
We talked last episode, about how difficult it is to grow up in a system, an unhealthy family system or an unhealthy religious system, and it sets all of your expectations. It tells you how to interpret the world, and so it really is scary. It is daunting. It is overwhelming to step away from that into a new world where you say, I'm no longer going to trust that lens. I'm now going to look all around this beautiful world for what reality is, and to start to lean into that. And so, folks, we're given a lot of grace to you, and I certainly needed a lot of it when I went through this.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to add this to the stage, and if you'll do your magic. There we go. Whoops. Sorry.
I did it. When you said that, it was already on the screen. It was already there. You were already off to the side. It already had your name underneath.
This is what happens when I start to try to do something that you're already doing. All right. So today's discussion is going to be from obedience to integrity. So this is part 2, as I already talked about. And to frame this space, I just want people to understand that what we're sharing here is not a blueprint. This is really just an open conversation, and we're just reflecting here. So you are invited to stay curious. If something resonates with you that we're speaking about, that's great. If it doesn't, honor that within yourself and just put it down. I also want to just mention that all reactions that you may have are normal, including confusion, discomfort, or numbness. And I want to note that the left brain lens has served you very, very well. That's your cognitive side of your brain. And what we're going to be sort of introducing here is a process that's going to invite you to allow a different kind of somatic, felt sense wisdom to begin to emerge. So just stay open, curious, and patient as this unfolds, and know that there is no right way to do this. This, I thought was a really cool illustration. And this just kind of shows the different aspects of our left and right brain. So those of us who have been raised in a high control system tend to be governed by this left side of our brain, which is all about rules, control, logic, linear thinking, and analytical. And this is the part of the brain that we can use to override our feelings using the prefrontal cortex. And the right brain is where we connect into our felt sense, into the interoception, which is that part of us that can tune into the bodily sensations and understand what those mean. It's where we feel our intuition, our gut feelings. It's also where we develop our emotions and empathy. And it's where we can connect into creativity and metaphor. So, and there's also a really important part of the brain that connects to our desire and play and presence.
The only thing I'll add here is it was a really difficult thing for me to sit with the non-logical side of my brain at times. Feelings can be overwhelming. It can be really new, especially if you're in a system or in a relationship where you get triggered and you find yourself being very defensive. It sometimes is easy for that person to try to stay in their logical brain to deal with whatever it is that's in front of them that isn't healthy. And when people start to lean into that other side of the brain and to feel into these things, there again, just like I said a few minutes ago, I think you need to give yourself a lot of grace. it can be quite a shift from the way some of us do it. Some of
Mm.
us use logic as a way to avoid overreacting or to avoid uh, getting harmed by the thing that is trying to either manipulate us or the person who's trying to manipulate us. And so this can be really new stuff that is difficult at first. And so, as you step into this, it isn't going to be a night and day difference right from the beginning. It's you're trying to set up experiences that you can sort of taste it a little bit, step into the darkness a little bit, and experience this in a way that you can begin to see that something new can happen, if you allow it.
Yeah, and, so many people who grow up in high control systems are taught to override, and they're so, so good at it. So this override function here where you can override your feelings using your prefrontal cortex, you you've learned to distrust your own internal knowing so much that you've just shut down this part of the brain. And so letting this come online is going to feel sometimes really confusing. It's going to feel a little bit unsafe sometimes. And you may feel like you've lost a little bit of control. So that's all a very normal process. It's a little disorienting. So just know that going in and know that whatever you're sensing and feeling around this is okay and normal. So I want to first talk about what does it mean to form a self that is self-connected and, that's not shaped by fear, duty, or external expectation. And essentially this means learning to trust your inner world again, learning to trust your feelings, your desires, and your body's signals. And it means that you're no longer building your life around what will keep other people happy, impressed, and my favorite thing is unoffended. You are gonna be learning to listen for what feels aligned rather than what feels known, familiar, or safe. And eventually, you will begin to understand that alignment actually does equal safety. That's gonna feel very different for you as you practice this. And when you reconnect to yourself, safety will become internally sourced rather than externally outsourced, which is what so many of us do in these high control systems. We disconnect from the sense that we actually are the authority of ourselves, and basically we become we have like an external locus of control rather than an internal locus of control. And so this process is going to help you shift that so that you have a more internal locus of control, which helps you understand that have uh, you have the ability to make change in your life, and it's not just everything outside of you. So instead of asking, what do they want from me? You can start to ask, what do I want for myself? And a lot of people are gonna think or feel that this is very selfish because we've been told that, connecting to ourselves or choosing for ourselves is very selfish, but it's actually self-honoring. So if you can shift the mindset from, this is a selfish thing to do to I'm actually learning to honor myself, that can help. Um, and this says, you're not becoming rebellious, although I think it's really great for people to become rebellious. I think a lot of people missed out on having a rebellious youth, and I think that's sort of a part of life that everybody sort of needs to experience. And so if you feel a little rebellious, that's okay. What's happening here is that you're becoming real. You're becoming someone whose choices come from alignment rather than obligation. And you can stop performing a version of yourself to earn love and start showing up as yourself because you know that you are already lovable. So, it's not an easy process, but that's what it means to move uh, from obedience to integrity or self connection. All right. So, I want to point out that someone pointed out in the comments for our last episode that the word integrity brought up a similar feeling as the word that Jody Hildebrandt used, which is distortion, like when you're living in distortion. So, I just want to mention that when we use the word integrity, that's all about you. That has nothing to do with you get to define what your own integrity is. So I'm shifting that word as much as I can, and I want to replace it with the word self connection because I don't want that to be triggering for anybody. So I just wanted to mention that in case in case you felt any kind of reaction to that word, and just understand how I'm defining that.
Yeah,
Okay.
people grow up in homes where the parents have a really rigid expectation of what the kids need to be. And so your own autonomy is gone. And how you fulfill your family role is by fitting in the box that they gave you. Some of you belong to religious systems that had a really small box that you needed to fit in. Uh, how you showed up in the world, what kind of demeanor you had, what kind of tone you had, whether you use language that was supportive of the system or whether you voice disagreement. There were so many expectations for how you fit into that system, and you were set up to be punished in various ways if you didn't fit in. And what Teresa's getting at is now the next step in the journey of growth is to recognize that uh, the authorities inside of you, that the internal locus of control is internal to you. It isn't about having an outer authority out there who, whether it's a bunch of church leaders or a system or parents, uh, telling you what it is you need to be for their world to be okay. It's about you now deciding what it is you need for your world to be okay, and and you have the right to be the fullest expression of yourself, in so much as you don't cause harm to others. And this is going to be new, just along with the other things we've said. This is going to be new because all your life you've been told what mold to fit, and you've had to wear masks. And now is a chance to just sense, like, oh, like there's a full human being inside of me that has their own wants and needs. Their own way they want the world to look, and you have a right within reason to negotiate and to push for your world so that you can be happy and healthy inside.
I love that. Yeah, and as when we use integrity, it's more about self-integrity. It's not integrity to the system, it's integrity to yourself, and as we've defined it, it just means, internal congruence.
We talked last week, Teresa, about how some people show up with their behaviors being different than what's going on inside of them. That's a misalignment. That's a lack of integrity. Integrity is you show up in the world with your voice, having your boundaries, asking for your needs, making reasonable requests for your needs to be filled, and not tolerating harm from anyone. And you show up in the world outwardly, making working towards making that happen because your internal voice wants that. That's integrity.
I love it. All right. So, what is the inner compass? So, the felt sense of what's right or wrong for you, even if it's messy, evolving, or different from others. This is going to be a subtle body based awareness that says, this feels true, or something is off here. Now, your internal compass integrates your body, your emotions, your values, and your wisdom. And a few of the reasons why we lost touch with our inner compass are, obedience taught us to outsource our truth. We learn to look to authority, doctrine, or approval before acting. Desire and intuition were framed as dangerous. This is a huge one, and this is what really messes people up, because just having a normal desire, knowing what you want, desiring what you want, and your own intuition were framed as dangerous. So feelings like anger, longing, or doubt were treated as moral failings. And then self-trust was replaced with self-doubt. We learned to question our own instincts before we even had a chance to hear them. Now, rebuilding the inner compass. So, self trust is rebuilt through small, embodied experiments with truth. And I love the word experiments here. So, these are going to be things that you are testing out. Sometimes you'll get positive feedback, sometimes you'll get negative feedback. It's okay. The difference between thinking about truth and feeling truth in your body is going to help you understand what that feels like. Um, and then how to recognize your authentic no and your authentic embodied yes, and learning to pause and orient inward before making choices. And this is something that's very different for a lot of people, because when you have been told constantly what is true and what is not true, and again, you've had to override all of that feedback in your body, It's really hard to hear it sometimes. So your truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers discomfort. And so that's the thing that you're going to start trying to sense into and get reconnected with.
Yeah, it really is the ability to be present with what you're feeling. Your body will communicate to you that something isn't okay here. Your body will communicate that somebody is uh, handling you in a manipulative way. Your body will tell you that you're sacrificing your needs for the needs of the group or the needs of another. And we have to do that sometimes, but we shouldn't be doing it all the time. And we should feel like we're also, as much as we give in to the world around us, that we're also taking things we need as well. And so there should be a balance there. And you should be able to just sit with what's going on internally and start to notice some of these things. And I think that's, at least for me, that's the first step, is just going like, oh, I feel something right now and it doesn't feel good. And I'm going to sit with that for a minute and try to put words to that.
Yeah, I love that. I love this slide. What does alignment and self connection feel like? And it's funny because whenever I'm working with clients and I'm asking them to go inward, I put a hand on my heart. I come into my center. It's a way for me to start connecting into that feeling, sensing part of me. So this is just a little outline to show you, how to recognize a felt sense yes and a felt sense no. So a felt sense yes is going to feel like ease. You're going to feel an expansion in your chest or your belly. You may take a natural breath or notice that you're breathing, really naturally and easily. You're going to feel lightness or relief. And you're going to have a grounded confidence, even if nervousness is present, which sounds kind of weird, but there's a difference there. You can be mentally nervous about something, but your body can feel really calm about it, and that's generally giving you a signal that you have a felt sense yes about it. So these signals can feel subtle at first and may require quiet to feel them. So you may need to step away and go into a quiet space to just really tune in and start sensing in. Now, your felt sense no is going to feel like tightness in your chest or your gut. You may feel nausea, dread, or shutdown, anxiety or urgency, an inner pulling away or pushing away from, or feeling like you're about to perform or betray yourself. There's almost like, if you've ever felt like you were people pleasing or performing in a certain way because it was just the pattern that you had your whole life, and there comes a time when you walk away from an interaction like that and you just feel like, ugh, like that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. And I think that's a part of your system letting you know that, that wasn't really aligned. That wasn't you weren't acting from your truth, you were performing. And we do that for reasons of protection, you know what I mean? So it's not I don't want people to make themselves wrong for that. It's very normal and natural, and you don't have to make yourself wrong if you notice it, but just notice what it feels like inside. That's the only thing you really need to do, is just start building your awareness of what these things feel like. And when you're doing that, make sure that you're not doing that from a judgmental place. Okay, so this is a big thing for a lot of people who have come out of high control systems, um, especially when they've walked away from a system that they realized was actually untrue. And they believed completely and totally that it was the total truth. And then they realized that it was all a lie. So how do you trust your felt sense again, if it led you to a lie? So if you were told by a system, pray, and when you feel a burning in your bosom or a warmth in your system, that's going to tell you that this is the truth, or the true church, or whatever it is. This is very common in the Mormon system. So this is one of the deepest wounds of religious manipulation, which is having your own body and emotions used against you. And you were told if it feels peaceful, then it means it's true. If you don't feel good about something, then it means you're wrong. The spirit will confirm it with a burning in the bosom. And, maybe you did feel that warmth or that emotion or that spiritual high, only to later discover that it was tied to a system that caused harm or wasn't built on the full truth. And that is painful and disorienting and makes you feel like how can I ever trust myself again if I truly fully believe that what I was feeling inside was the truth. So I want to just illustrate a little bit about, what actually happened in that moment. So what you were experiencing was not a lie from your body. It was a real emotion. And these emotions are used against you, and they're produced in high stakes environments by using tactics like emotional music, personal emotional testimonials. Think of fast and testimonial meetings in the Mormon Church. By group consensus, when everybody is affirming that this is the truth, it builds your sense of rightness or a sense of feeling that something is right. When you are feeling pressure to conform, or you are feeling fear of disappointing God or your family. And then also if it's, used against you in this binary way, like if you feel good, it's the spirit. If you don't, it's Satan. So your body and emotions were responding appropriately to all of these powerful cues. But what was manipulative was the meaning or story that was imposed on those cues. And um, it's very similar to advertising. They advertising and religion both sell a story, and they use a lot of different emotionally manipulative tactics to sell you that story in a way that makes you feel like it's true. So I just wanted to outline a couple of these different tactics that are used both by religion and advertising. So, number one is the emotional hook over rational thought. So, with advertising, they're going to say, this perfume will make you irresistible. And in religion, it's going to be this belief will give your life ultimate meaning. So, both are leading with emotion, with desire, fear, belonging, and not facts. Number 2 is the promise of transformation. So advertising is gonna tell you, "Buy this and your life will improve." And religion will say, "Follow this and your soul will be saved." Selling a better version of yourself just on different timelines. One is about eternity and the other is about today. Number 3 is that, both manipulate scarcity and push urgency. So advertising is gonna there's always this thing of, like, limited time offer. The deal is going to expire by such and such. And religion drives that home with, the time is short, the second coming is near. So you better get your ducks in a row and, before the second coming, because then it's too late. So again, both are creating urgency to act now, bypassing critical reflection. Number 4 is they appeal to your identity and belonging, and this is a huge one. So, advertising is always saying like, people like you use this brand. And so they have this beautiful person and you are identifying with that person. If you use their product, then you're gonna look and feel like that person. And religion is, people like us believe this truth. And that's that's really big in the Mormon church because we're told that we're, the chosen people and that we have the only true church on earth and, all this kind of stuff. And so we feel really special by belonging to that church. So it's not just about the product or belief, it's about who you are if you use the product or align with that belief.
And I'll just say here, all throughout our lives, we've had people in groups and systems, groups of people and systems manipulate us. And it's easy to see in advertising, we could put up 100 examples of that, where you didn't really need something, you were manipulated into buying it, and then after you bought it, you hardly used it or didn't use it after you bought it either. And we've all done that. And if you extend that out and you realize, like, hey, in some way, a lot of people are doing that to us, and some are doing it in extreme amounts and for their own gain, and they've got lots of money to spend, and it's not really much different than advertising. And if we can just see that getting us to believe a thing, to behave a certain way, and why that might benefit the system or the group or the person, and to notice that there are people, groups, and systems around us that manipulate us for their own their own use and good for what they want to accomplish and what they want to do. And uh, it's a great opportunity to start to shake out of that spell.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to cover a few more of these just because I think it's interesting to be able to see, especially when looking at a religious system, to be able to see how much of it lines up with advertising. And it's infuriating to me, actually. I don't it was a couple years ago that I learned that there were actually tactics that advertisers used, and that they take advantage of people, and I just it's kinda gross. So, number 5 is the use of repetition and ritual. So in advertising, it's jingle, slogans, and product placement. In religion, it's hymns, testimonies, and call and response. Repetition builds the familiarity, and familiarity builds belief. Number 6 is leveraging authority figures. So advertising, will be celebrity endorsements or professional. So 9 out of 10 dentists agree, yada, yada, yada. In religion, it's prophets, scriptures, and charismatic leaders. And also in the Mormon religion, they also use celebrities too. You've got Donny Osmond and Steve Young and like all the famous Mormons, that they utilize as well. Um, Number 7 is fear-based messaging. In advertising, it's without this, you'll fall behind, look old, and be unsafe. In religion, it's without this, you'll be lost, you'll suffer, and you'll go to hell. Number 8 is imagery and storytelling. In advertising, they show a person with glowing skin, they show happy families and adventure travel. In religion, it's heavenly mansions, chosen people, sacred journeys. They also show happy families in religion as well, especially in the Mormon church. And so they're selling you a story. They're selling you it through imagery and this idea that this is, your truth and your happiness lie here. And the last one is number 8, suppressing, or number 9, suppressing doubt. So in advertising, they'll push you to say, don't overthink it, just do it. And in religion, it's doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith. Both discourage questions that may interfere with the sale. So, whether it's a product or a belief system, both advertising and religion can use psychological persuasion, emotional manipulation, and identity based messaging to shape our decisions, not by informing us, but by influencing us. So, the reason I'm even sharing this is because when you are able to see this clearly, you are going to be able to reclaim your ability to choose consciously rather than to be sold unconsciously. So when you are aware that these tactics are being used, that gives you more power to and more information to understand what's happening when you are feeling into something or trying to make a decision about something. So, we're going to move into the section about learning how to trust yourself. How do we repair trust with ourselves after we've lost it due to feeling like, our emotions and our felt sense was used against us? So we learn to separate the feeling from the story we were told about the feeling. So instead of, I feel warmth, so it must be true, we learn to ask, I feel warm. What does that warmth mean for me right now? We stop using emotion as proof of external truth and we start using it as information about our internal experience. And we start getting a little bit more curious about all the other elements. We don't just take just a felt sense. You're going to use your logic and your critical thinking and other information to help you come to a consensus about what is true for you. Trust rebuilds slowly through curious observation. What does this feel like in my body? Contextual awareness. Am I calm and grounded? Or am I in a state of urgency or fear? Consent and choice. Do I feel free to say yes or no? And then integration, when you notice what happens in my body after I act on this. And again, this is all about allowing yourself to experiment and notice that sometimes, you may act on something and your body may feel yuck. That's okay. But sometimes you may act on it and you may feel congruence or a sense of calm. All of this is just information. You're just gathering data to understand what is right and not right for you. When you are connected to your whole self, your body, your values, your context, your history, and your felt sense, you become trustworthy again. Because now you're not being told what it means. You are the one deciding. So this brings you back to the point of choice.
The only thing I'll add here is what was helpful to me was to realize that it was everyone else who gave me my definitions and interpretations for the world. Um, so, for instance, when it comes to Mormonism and feeling the Holy Ghost, it laid out certain things that one would feel: a burning in the bosom, hair standing up on the back of your neck, a warm feeling in your body, your chest, and positive thoughts about wanting to be good in the world. And then I came to find out that Jonathan Haidt, a social scientist, had done tons of work on and research on humans and how they experience the world. And he uses the exact same definitions of a burning feeling, a warm sensation in the chest, uh, thoughts and ideas going into your head about showing up really good and positive in the world, uh, sort of an overwhelm of positive feeling in your body. And all he did, he didn't have anything to do with Mormonism. He just said, "Hey, I'm a social scientist and people in the world feel these things and it's called elevation emotion." And I just go, "Well, yeah, but my religion taught me it's this." Well, yes, your parents taught you things, your school taught you things, your religion taught you things, and some of that missed the mark. And some of that was defining things incorrectly or defining things they never should have for you. Uh, when you have a normal human experience and religion comes in and corrupts that by saying, "Oh, let me take this thing because they're going to experience it. It's going to feel like evidence. If we can just twist it a little bit and make it an evidence for the system rather than just a normal human thing you're experiencing." And so when I started deconstructing Mormonism, when I realized that uh, it had given me all the definitions, it had told me what meanings to make, and then I was permitted to start from scratch and just ask, what is this really that's going on, and be allowed to interpret it without those expectations, without that lens. It really felt empowering.
Yeah, and what you're saying reminds me of MLM marketing, like when somebody, they have these conventions for these multi-level marketing companies, and that's all they do. It's elevated emotion. It's making you feel like the brand that you are selling from is so
Yep.
special and unique and different, and and it's changing the world and all this kind of stuff. It's fascinating. Um, and part of what happens for people when they leave these groups is they have to learn how to think critically. So it's not just about learning to feel, but it's also about finding a way to sort of ask questions and be open and curious again. Because we were taught that we could never question. We couldn't even ask the question. If somebody just said, "This is true. This is the way it is," we took that for truth. And so, it can be really helpful to just recognize, like, oh, I have the right to ask questions. I have the right to question what somebody else says. They're stating this, but that doesn't mean it's true. And also to understand that something doesn't have to be true or not true, because we were also taught for a long time that everything is a binary, truth or untruth. What if there's just true for me or not true for me? This system is good for me, this system is not good for me. And giving yourself permission to identify what aligns with you and what doesn't without having to make the thing necessarily wrong. It just might not be right for you, you know, and kind of coming out of that binary thinking. Um, I want to talk about self connection over self improvement. So, a lot of people can get into a trap of trying to fix yourself, especially when they're trying to heal from any type of abuse or coming out of a high control system. And in high control systems, love was conditional on performance. So healing can then become another to do list. So now we think to ourselves, like, oh, I've got to be positive. I've got to meditate daily. I can never get triggered. I have to fix myself. And and learn to suppress all of these big emotions that are coming up, because that's what feels safe, or that's what feels familiar. And, people will carry this into their healing journey, turning self-help into self-policing. And all of this is still centering on fear, on pressure, on outcome dependence rather than freedom. And that's not where you want to go with this. I, I think it's okay if you find yourself in that place, because looking back on my own healing journey, this was a huge thing for me. I was so rigid in trying to fix what was broken within myself that my whole life, my whole day was dedicated to healing. I used to meditate 5 hours a day, just trying to fix what was broken. And that was part of the journey for me, and I had to sort of exhaust that before I could fully surrender and recognize that, like, healing didn't have to look that way, that I could take it slow, that I could be kind to myself. So, um, if you can move from the idea of trying to fix yourself into, this process of developing more self-connection, um, it's just it's a more effective and efficient way of living, I think. It's where you're gonna actually find that calm and centered part of you. So self-connection really just means turning towards your experience with curiosity rather than judgment. And it's learning to be with yourself rather than trying to make yourself better to be acceptable. So it'll ask, what am I feeling? What do I need? And can I stay with myself right here? Self connection is what actually builds our safety, and safety is what builds the capacity for change. Because when I talk about this a lot when I work with clients. A lot of people think that they have to push themselves in order to change. And what I always tell them is, when they can actually reconnect to safety inside their body, there will be a natural like a natural energy that moves outward, that helps them to want to move out into the world. It doesn't have to be forced. It's something that naturally emerges when they feel safe enough. Because when your system feels safe, it wants to engage, it wants to connect, it wants to move outward, it wants to do, um, it wants to mobilize. And that's what we're looking for, rather than, what we were taught, which is to just whip ourselves forward and beat ourselves forward. Um, that's the same energy that we're sort of trying to escape.
I have a question for you, Teresa. So, in
Mhm.
your line of work, you sit down with clients and you have conversations around uh, trauma processing, not necessarily the trauma itself, but them trying to sit with what's going on inside of them and how symptoms are showing up. And often you talk about how when you deal with someone who has been telling themselves, their brain has been telling their body all these stories to the point where everything is scary and everything causes the body to feel something. When you get them off that track and onto the right track, there is a period of time where they can feel worse or extreme overwhelm, right? And I
Mhm.
think there's at least the risk of the same thing happening here, which is you've lived your whole life with a created expectation by a system that wasn't based in truth, and you've been manipulated and deceived, and now you're going to step out into the darkness and uh, go, okay, I'm going to sit with my feelings, I'm going to try to manage, but it's all new. It's not easy stuff, and you're having to form new ways to tackle problems in your life, and tackling, uh, experiencing overwhelm or noticing that someone's trying to manipulate you. And I think in the early stages, there's the risk that's sort of similar to what goes on in your practice, which is that when people first step into doing this, they may take a couple steps back before taking a step forward. They might lean into their autonomy, and there are certain situations where maybe it backfires.
Yeah.
Um, and that people need to be aware that this, for me, this is about micro improvements. It's about, like, oh, like, I had a new conversation today that I never would have had, and I'm still gonna mess it up from time to time, and I'm gonna mess it up more in the beginning and less on the backside of this when I've experienced a few years of really practicing this. But in the beginning, this is all new, and every instance may not go great, and there may be instances that it sort of feels like you fell on your face for a moment.
Yes. Yeah. So how I address this with clients, and you're absolutely right. This is going to happen for people because it is so new and so unfamiliar, and your nervous system has been adapted to a sense of control and contraction. And now you're sort of opening things up and allowing it to have choice. And it's like, oh my God, I can't, choice is not safe. And so there's a concept in trauma healing called titration. And in chemistry, they use this when they're mixing one chemical with another. They do one drop at a time. If they were to just dump one chemical fully into the other chemical, it would just, you have this massive, reaction. And so they do it one drop at a time, and it's called titration. And so it's the same concept in healing where you are able to just go slowly, one little step at a time, one moment at a time. And this is what allows for you to actually integrate the change and not be overwhelmed and not have a strong reaction. But strong reactions are still going to happen. So the other piece of this is that normalizing the process, normalizing that it's going to feel big and overwhelming and unfamiliar and uncomfortable, and allowing that to be like when you know that that's expected, and you don't judge your process, it makes it so much easier. I also try to tell people to really give themselves permission to make mistakes, to have setbacks, to not have it go perfectly, to face plant, as you said, because that's normal. And when you can create space for it, when you can actually say like, oh, okay, like that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, and all of that's okay. It does not mean that I'm wrong. I can separate making a mistake or having a little misstep here from being wrong or bad. And it is a hard thing to unwind because we were told so much in our high control systems that any misstep was going to cost us so much, cost us our connection to God, or cost us our salvation, or cost us connection with family, whatever it was. And so it's a messy process. It just is. And the more we can all sort of share like, hey, yeah, it's messy for me too, and normalize that and make people understand that this isn't anything to be ashamed about or to get too worked up over, because it's just what happens.
We also talked. We also had a conversation the other day, you and I, and we were talking about how, we've talked in the podcast before about parts work, internal family systems, and that there really are lots of parts inside of us. And because there are different parts, and some of them have been traumatized, and some of them are protectors over the parts of us that have been traumatized, it it also can be an incongruency internally. Like it's one thing that you go and try this in the outside world, and it doesn't go quite the way you expect. You either still overreact, you still shut down and allow yourself to be manipulated. You still show up in such a way that the thing doesn't go right. And I'll just note that this can also be internal. There can be parts of you that don't believe yet that the whole of you is going to do the thing that you're now trying to do. And there may be some need to just sit still for a minute and sit with what's going on inside, that maybe some parts of you don't trust all of you.
Yeah.
um, and there may be moments where you have to reassure the parts of you inside that something is different now, that you've grown up, you're on the second half of life, and you're now gonna, it may not go perfectly, but you're gonna tackle this now in a way. And this is for me the big thing. I can tell that I'm handling events, experiences, reactions different than I used to. I'm a new person. I now have tools and resources that I didn't have back then. And I now have the ability, I won't always get it right, but I now have the ability to manage a conversation or a situation in ways that I could not have done 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And as the parts of you see that you are doing something new, uh, they will begin to come around as well.
Yeah. They will for sure. And the first step in all of this is awareness. You don't even have to make choices yet. You just start to become aware and notice the things. The second step is, once you notice and you have the ability to pause a little bit, then you're going to start practicing making choices, and you're going to feel things in response to the different choices that you make. And so then you learn to be with and sit with that. And then the second part is eventually the system does start to trust you, because you start making choices more in favor of your whole self, or in congruence with your felt sense and all of your parts. And eventually your parts start to trust you a little bit more. And if you can continue to just people think that self-compassion, kindness, grace are just trivial things, but I'm telling you, they are the most fundamental part of healing and moving forward. I don't care what you do, you can make lots and lots and lots of mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. And the more you can give yourself grace around making mistakes, the more your system is going to sort of unwind and start to heal and grow. And that's where you are going to be able to make more choices for yourself. And you're going to be kinder to other people too. Like, that's a thing. I think people think like, oh, if I give myself grace, and I'm going to keep making mistakes, or I'm going to be mean to other people, but it's the opposite for so many people. So um no matter where you are on the process, yeah, just be kind to yourself, and let it be messy. And um yeah, but the parts work part can be a little complex at times. And if at any point anyone has some difficulty, they have big protector parts that are coming up that are shutting them down, that's when it would be really helpful to go try to find a therapist who is IFS informed, internal family systems informed, who does a lot of this parts work stuff, to sort of help guide you through that process of working with those parts, and figuring out what those protector parts need to kind of stand down a little bit so that you can move forward. So I love that you brought that up. Um, did that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just I want to quickly go through some of these signs that you are still in the self-improvement loop. So you may judge yourself for being behind in healing. You may feel guilt for resting or not doing enough. You only feel proud when you're seeing progress. You constantly compare yourself to others' healing stories. And if your healing path feels like pressure, it's just time to soften again. Like I was saying, just come back to that. Like, give yourself, as my famous phrase, you have all the time in the world. You really do. And you get there faster when you lean into that and trust that, like, it's just one step at a time. So what shifts when you choose self-connection? You are going to start to make space for messy, contradictory, and evolving parts of you. I love that so much, because it's okay to be messy. It's okay to have contradiction in yourself, and it's okay to give yourself space to evolve. You are going to start to move at the speed of trust, not urgency. I had a client, I think, that told me that phrase. I loved it so much. Moving at the speed of trust rather than urgency. Progress is not forced, it emerges from compassion and attunement. And you're going to get to the place where you stop asking, am I doing this right? And instead can start asking, am I being honest with myself? That's going to be the most important thing to you, is, living from that, again, place of self-integrity or self-connection. Here is a practice prompt. You can do this for just even 30 seconds, and just pause a little bit and ask yourself, in this moment, can I connect to myself without needing to fix, to change, or improve anything? And again, this is I bet a lot of people, when they even hear this, may feel uncomfortable, like sitting there and not improving or not fixing or not doing something to make something better can feel so foreign and weird and uncomfortable. I know, even, as we have talked, when, when I'm always telling you, and you always turn it back on me, which I think is funny. But when I tell you the phrase, we have all the time in the world, and there'll be a part in you that's like, no, we don't. Like, time is limited, like there's a part that doesn't trust that. So if you could just, like, maybe share a little bit about what that feels like for you when I say that sometimes.
Well, for me, I need to sort of have life distract me. I need to always be on the run. I need to always be getting things done. And then I'm driving the car, and we're going for a ride to go do something, run an errand or whatnot. And next thing you know, there's a bunch of traffic, and I've got to sit and wait. before I can get out into the main road. And you can sense that I'm getting a little perturbed,
Mhm.
and you'll say that. You'll say, "Hey, we have all the time in the world." And I'm like, "No, we don't. We got today to get stuff done, and then tomorrow comes, and we got more things to get done tomorrow."
Mhm.
But there is truth in that. Like there's a there's a sense of what we need to do to have our life operate, but that's also been handed to us.
Mhm.
And there is, and if there isn't, there should be some time for yourself. There should be some time to just stop and slow down and check in and take a breath, do a body scan, be able to be present with what you're feeling. And when you're able, and sometimes you're able and sometimes you're not, when you're able to get me to see that, everything lightens up. It's
Mhm.
not as stressful. Um, it's not as overwhelming. And also just to put this back on you, like none of us are perfect at this. So I also do it to you because you'll be the teacher, but then 20 minutes later you're the student who's in a hurry to do something or needs to rush and I'll tell you, I'll just put it back on you, be like, hey, you know what? We have all the time in the world. And then of course we laugh because
Yeah.
we all need reminded of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's always a part of me that'll be like, "Ugh," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's my thing, so okay, yep, lean into that." So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny. Thank you. Um, okay, so learning to act for yourself. So this is gonna talk a little bit about, the idea of self-betrayal. So, many of us were conditioned to put others' needs, their comfort, and their expectations above our own, and over time, this can create chronic resentment, emotional exhaustion, numbness or anxiety, a lost sense of who we really are, because acting for others, eventually becomes this default, even when it's not honest. And yeah, this is a hard one because so many of us, especially women, this so much will resonate with the majority of women because we were literally taught to self-sacrifice. Um, and we're taught that basically acting for ourselves is selfish. But I just want to say that acting for yourself is not selfish. It actually means living from truth, not compliance. It is choosing from internal clarity rather than fear of disapproval. It doesn't mean ignoring others, it means including yourself. And self honoring decisions often create deeper authenticity in relationships, even when they create temporary discomfort. And I know that's hard to fathom because so many of us have been taught, like, oh, don't rock the boat. Like, that'll rock our relationship, but when you can be truly honest and you can give somebody else permission to be truly honest, it does create more a deeper connection and more authenticity. And oh, I had a thought here and now it's gone. Anyway, this is an important thing to start to learn to act for yourself and to reframe it from selfishness to self-care to, coming into a deeper sense of authenticity. Um,
And this doesn't mean that we're going to stop doing good in the world. You're just going to recognize your own capacity. You're going to recognize your own self leadership. You're going to sense into the moments where you're over compromising in order to make others happy, but neglecting yourself in the midst of that. And we all have to do a little bit of that, and it won't disappear. You'll still continue to have to compromise, negotiate, uh, you know, sacrifice to help the other person who needs it at this moment. But you're also going to recognize your own self care that's needed. You're going to recognize your own needs being left by the wayside, and you're not going to allow that to happen as a complete and total thing that occurs all the time like it used to.
Mhm.
You're going to begin to have, and I said it a couple minutes ago, you're going to begin to have some self leadership where you know what you need, you know what you can give to the world around you, and you navigate that in ways that continue to be healthier and healthier.
Yeah, and what's also really cool about this is when you the more you learn to self-connect, the more you learn to honor your own needs, and feel safe within your own body, you actually start to feel an overall grounded sense of safety in that you don't require other people to be okay. So codependency, for example, is when we're constantly focused on the other person, and I always define it as I'm not okay unless you're okay. So then when you're someone who has a lot of codependency tendencies, you tend to subvert everything you're feeling in order to make sure that person is regulated and okay and grounded and not upset. And when you start to learn to connect inward and honor your own needs, you feel so much safety that you start to realize, like, oh, well, that person can be upset. That person can have their own feelings. They're not mine. And I'm not responsible for them. And I'm safe for them to feel whatever they feel. So then your life is not dictated by everybody outside of you because you learn to tune into yourself and manage your own feelings. And there's a deep safety that comes from that. Let's see. What do you want? It's a good question for so many people. And it's hard to find the answer to that for a lot of people. Um, okay, so, how to recognize self-betrayal. Uh, if I say yes here, will I feel more connected or more resentful? That's a good question to ask. Am I trying to avoid guilt or am I standing in my truth? Would I still do this if no one praised me for it? And then common signs are a tight chest or gut, lingering resentment, feeling collapsed inside, or dissociation, over explaining or fawning. Um, Now, choosing yourself, as we just talked about, is going to disrupt some dynamics, especially if you've always been the peacekeeper or the helper. It's important to know that discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong and that you are not responsible for others' reactions to your truth. Acting for yourself may disappoint others, but it will stop disappointing you. And so it's about building tolerance for other people to be sort of not happy. And again, reminding yourself that that's not yours to carry. That's like each person is capable and resourced to be able to manage their own feelings. And you don't always have to be the one doing that. Um, so, this just kind of goes into why choosing yourself is going to feel foreign or uncomfortable at first. So, because you were trained to prioritize others through peacekeeping, obedience, and approval, you may have been taught that honoring your needs is, like we talked about before, selfish, unsafe, shameful, or even sinful. When you begin to choose yourself, your body may interpret it as danger, not because it is dangerous, but because it's unfamiliar. So, discomfort does not mean that you are wrong. It simply means that you are growing. And this is another hard thing to sort of navigate for people because, we're talking about learning to sense into your body and know when it's a yes or a no. But sometimes something foreign can feel like a no. It can feel contracted and icky inside because it's your system registering it as dangerous when it's been taught that, being like choosing yourself or moving outward into the world is not safe. So you can start to just work with that discomfort. You don't need to overwrite it. You don't need to pretend like it's not there. What you're being called to is to just sit with it, to name it, and to breathe into it. And, that's when you can sort of just witness it and allow it to sort of have its arc. It's gonna go up, and the more you can sit with it without judging it, again, this is using this concept of mindfulness, which is, what you're feeling is totally okay, it's safe. You don't need to judge it, you don't need to make it wrong, you're just gonna notice it with total curiosity. So you watch it, feel it, it has this arc, it goes up, and then it starts to go down and it dissipates and discharges. And that's such a powerful um, practice to develop because it allows you to manage all kinds of different emotions that may have taken you offline before. So as you're doing this, you can say to yourself that, this feels unfamiliar and I'm safe to feel it. And, I can be with this discomfort without abandoning myself. And you may feel the impulse to run from it, to distract from it, to shut it down, and that's okay. That just means that your system again is not, is not familiar with it, doesn't see it as safe. But the more that you can normalize it and remind yourself like, wow, this is just a sensation, this is just a feeling. Can I be with it for even just 10 seconds? You can start out really, really small. You don't have to sit in it for hours. Just be with it. And then you can give yourself permission to do some intentional distraction and then come back to it. Um, the more you can practice staying with that discomfort, even through that short moments, again, using that concept of titration where you just do it a little bit at a time, Um, the more you can do that without collapsing, the more capacity you're going to build. And growth lives on the other side of staying present with what feels new. Um, I wanted to say something about this. Uh, yeah, I wanted to share a story just really quick about the ability to sort of feel into a yes and a no, especially when I think when we were doing some of the other slides around, let's see which one, this slide. So, how to recognize a felt sense yes versus a felt sense no. Um, This one here says, let's see, grounded confidence even when nervousness is present. Nervousness is present. And I wanted to share a story about how, when I was in my early 30s, I started dating someone, and on paper, this person looked amazing. Like my mind kept saying, like, this is the thing you should do. Like, this is the best you're ever going to find. But my body was sick. My body kept saying no. I felt it. I had an intuition. I knew something was off. And I overrode it because that's where I was in my life at that time. I would think that this is the thing to do. It was, in my mind, I thought that was the right thing to do. And so I went with it and I overrode all those internal felt sense no's. And then, I did a lot of work. I collapsed, got sick, did a lot of work and started to practice a different form of connection to myself. And then when I was ready to start dating again, I met Bill, and it was really scary for me. I was nervous about it. So, like, I had mental nerves. I had parts of my brain at the time that were like, "What are you doing? This is really scary," because he lived, quite a distance away. But what was different about that was I felt so calm inside. There was not one part of me that was saying like, "Oh god, you shouldn't do this. This is," like there was just such a difference in it. And that's when I really understood that you can have the nerves there. You can have a part of you that feels a little uneasy about something, but there's a quiet softness to when something is really in alignment for you. And that's the difference, like for me before it was like my mind told me one thing and my body told me another, and I listened to my mind, and this time around I listened to my body. And the two outcomes have been very different. So, as we get to this last slide here, I just want to whoops, back here. What's going on? Was
Me,
that you?
sorry. It was me trying to help.
All right. So as you were sort of exploring this process, and again, I'm going to keep using the word like explore, experiment, practice, and all of that leaves room for you to have a lot of missteps, to have it be messy. It takes a lot of practice before we become proficient at anything. So this is one thing that you can do. Just commit to yourself to just do a daily check-in. Make space, even 30 seconds a day. It says 2 minutes a day, but I'd even say just 30 seconds a day to ask yourself, did I act in a way that felt true for me today? Where did I override myself and why? And just stay curious about it. Don't judge yourself. Don't make yourself wrong for it. Just take in the information. It's just data. And then, you can ask yourself, what would self alignment look like next time? Again, this is not about critiquing yourself. It's about staying in dialogue with yourself and growing your self awareness and self acceptance. So, here are a few. Here's a great question that you can sort of ask yourself. What would it look like to live in such a way that you trust yourself more and more over time? What habits, what conversations, and what boundaries might support that? And what would you let go of in service of wholeness over approval? And again, to get to that place of wholeness over approval, you're going to have to walk through a span of discomfort. It's going to be unfamiliar and a little uncomfortable. But are you willing to take those steps to let go of living your life in service of approval rather than self-connection and wholeness? Um, and just know that this is the movement from obedience to integrity, and it's not a leap. It's just a practice. Um, those are my last thoughts. Anything that you have to add?
Yeah, I'll just say it's a lifetime of wanting to grow and being curious. So this journey for me has involved not just learning the things we talked about here today, not just about practicing moments as they came up, but it was also curiosity about how to be a better human being and what that led to. And led to things like reading books. So I'll give an example. The Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements, which I think is very compatible with what we talked about today.
Mm.
Um, those books, Four Agreements, Fifth Agreement, Mastery of Self, Mastery of Love, Circle of Fire, were all pieces and parts of this journey of getting really comfortable with who I am as a whole, how I'm different than every other human on the planet, how I'm the same as other humans on the planet, what my needs are, where I fit in and where I don't, where I belong and where I don't. Um, and things like reading those books have helped me develop the space that when I enter a moment where something is not right, to be able to have the inner strength to uh, Brene Brown calls it a soft front and a hard back. That,
Mm.
I come to the world wanting to be kind and gentle and to help everyone, but if you come into my space trying to push me where I don't want to be, or tell me things to manipulate me, I'm at a point in my life where I have no problem stating very clearly what is going on, why I don't like that, and why I won't tolerate it. Um, and some of that can be good. Somebody genuine needing your help can request that you give more than you have, and the ability to just say, "I'm really sorry, I don't have that right now to be able to give you whatever it is, energy, time, money, whatever it is." So not everybody who pushes against you is coming from a negative place or an unhealthy place, but for those who uh, either are needing something, not out of any unhealthiness, and those who are unhealthy and are trying to manipulate you in really unhealthy ways, you're just going to develop your inner voice. You're going to develop your autonomy. You're going to be the authority inside of you. Like, what do I need? What do I want? We've said that over and over again in this conversation. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this takes years, and there are so many pieces and parts that will play into this that aren't just you doing the work per se. It'll be you listening to a podcast and gaining something from it. Ken Wilber's Spiral Dynamics. It's the idea that growth is constantly learning new things while revisiting old things, and you constantly change on a spiral moving up. Um, you keep encountering experiences that are similar to things you've encountered in the past, but you now have new tools that you didn't have last year, last decade, 25 years ago. And so you now are a new person showing up to the situation, and you now have an opportunity to experience this moment entirely different than what you think it's like in terms of all the experiences in the past.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a really cool sign of growth is, when you come round and round and round and you recognize that you're able to do it differently. And you can see that as a sign that you really are integrating this more. There's a term that Deb Dana, she's a clinician that is connected to polyvagal theory. And she talks about being able to see glimmers, just small little openings, small little changes, a conversation that you have with somebody where you were able to speak your truth a little bit more, a moment where you didn't self-abandon as much. Anything like that that you just kind of uh, pay attention to and recognize that in small ways you are making changes and shifts and becoming more connected to yourself. So I'll leave it at that and just encourage people to again be self-compassionate, to be kind, and to take it one step at a time.
Folks, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. If you want to donate to the Almost Awakened podcast, please go to almostawakened.org, click the donate button, and we'll continue to bring these conversations to you. Thank you, Teresa, for putting part two together. And so long, everybody.
Take care.